Hey, InterVarsity alumni. This is After 4, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. This is both an exciting and potentially tricky transition that you're making, and you might feel a little unsure about the coming weeks and months. We're here to provide you with expert advice, practical skills, and plenty of encouragement as you learn how to keep saying yes to Jesus in your new context. This is After 4, and this podcast is for you, alumni. What's up, alumni? Welcome to After 4, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. I'm your host and guide, John Steele. In this episode, we come to our third of 3 conversations with Shang Saavedra of Save My Sense on the topic of personal finance. So far, we've discussed developing a healthy wealth mindset, and we've also talked about 3 simple ways to get smarter with your paycheck. If you missed those, check the show notes for links. This time around, we're talking about the influence of money on your romantic relationships. What role, if any, should money play as you consider spending your life with someone? Shang has some extremely helpful wisdom to share on the topic, so let's dive in. One last time, here's Shang Saavedra of Save My Sense, and this one's for you, alumni. Shang, one more time, welcome back to the podcast.
One more time.
This is how you know a guest is getting comfortable with being here, is when the songs start breaking out. Yes, Shang, it's been super fun getting to visit a few different conversations with you. A few weeks ago, we started kind of big picture, talking about us as God's financial managers and our relationship with money in that way. Then just a week or two ago, we talked about that first paycheck. What do you do with that first paycheck coming out of graduation and establishing healthy financial rhythms? And then today we're talking about love and money. We made sure to clarify, not love of money, but love and money today. Before we get there, though, Shang, give us one last time, give us a brief introduction so that anybody who hasn't caught our previous episodes can get to know you a little bit.
Yep. Shang Saavedra. I run the company Save My Sense, where I help you change your money lives 1 cent at a time by focusing on your mental health. I reached the ability to be work optional when I was 31 years old, so I now live a free life with my husband and 2 children in Southern California, and I have a book called Wealth is a Mindset, coming out in January 2025, where I talk about the relationship between our money and our mental health.
Love it. This is great. If you haven't caught our previous episodes, go back. There's a lot that will be helpful for you if you are navigating that first year of life after graduation. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that 2 things coming together that I think are super important, and that's love and money. Relationships, romantic relationships in particular, and money. So, Shang, big picture, what is the influence of money on a romantic relationship, dating, married, or otherwise? What's the reality?
Money is one of the top reasons that lead to divorce or at least contention in a relationship. And the evidence is here. You hear it from divorce lawyers. You hear it from people who've been through terrible relationships. And yet, almost nobody talks about money when they get into a relationship or when they think about marriage. And I really hope that everybody who's involved in this relationship, not only the 2 people who are dating, but also the pastoral staff and the support people, the parents, the friends, that you all try to work more of this money conversation into it, because you need to be financially compatible with a partner. The Bible talks about being equally yoked, and I believe that applies to your beliefs and your relationship with God, but I think it also applies to the economics. And so you need to be on the same page, financially compatible with a partner before considering marriage. And you also need to know some of the information. Like, there should be no secrets before you get married on the financial side. So I think knowing your partner's income, their net worth, particularly if they have debt, student loan debt, and how they see money as part of their lifestyle and their goals is important. And finally, I think we should look out for potential for abuse. There should not be financial mistreatment of other people in a relationship. And there are some red flags that I'd like to talk about so that people don't get into an abusive relationship that's going to be very difficult to exit afterwards.
Yes. So to start us off, this won't be the case for everybody, but more than likely for our listeners who are here in that first year of life after graduation, my guess is that most of them will fall, if they are involved in a romantic relationship, most of them will be dating or engaged. I'm guessing that that's where most of them would be. So if we can we think about this in like two segments and address each segment separately? So segment one being any point in a dating relationship before getting engaged, and segment two being engaged but not married. So if we can sort of break things up into both of those segments and address them, because I think that maybe, and maybe I'm wrong, but like I am imagining that there's maybe some nuance to these conversations depending on where you find yourself in that timeline, or maybe you have some specific advice. So starting in that segment one, like anywhere in the dating relationship but not yet engaged, when do you broach the topic of financial compatibility, and how do you do that with someone that you're dating?
It can feel so uncomfortable and unsexy to talk about money, but I think there's actually a lot of sexiness in being financially compatible. So try to, at least from a mindset point of view, keep in mind that it can be very sexy to be yoked to somebody who sees life in the same way that you do financially. In the beginning, it might just be through observation. As you go about life, as you guys go on dates, maybe even planning a trip together. Planning a trip together is actually a great way to see how somebody makes money decisions. Look at how your other half chooses or chooses not to spend money. Like, what are the reasons behind it? You can even ask, why do you want to do this over that? Pay attention to their preferences. Also ask about, hey, like, what are your plans for your career? Why did you choose this line of work? What do you like about it? Start asking those questions. And then as you get more and more comfortable in the relationship and closer, and again, it's up to you to judge how close that may be. The closer you get, those questions should get deeper and perhaps a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that if there is trust and vulnerability in the relationship, that's not going to cause the other person to recoil and be like, "What, you after my money?" That's not the goal here. The goal here is to understand how your other half chooses to behave around such an important part of life.
Even that, like someone else's willingness to engage in the conversation, could be a barometer for two things. One, have you built the appropriate level of trust yet to be able to talk about it? And if you get the sense that you can kind of talk about almost everything, but this still like stirs up contention, maybe that's one of those warning signs. You're like, something seems off here about, like, you're unwilling to talk about finances. Why is that?
Yeah, because it is one of the most essential inputs into life. So if they're not going to engage with you on it, that's kind of, concerning for the relationship.
Obviously, this is also something that people kind of have to take on a case-by-case basis. But if you start to see some of these markers of like, maybe we're not compatible financially, at this phase in a relationship, you're dating somebody, you're building trust, you're trying to decide if life is something you want to do together, do you try to find realignment and like appropriate levels of change and shaping in this, or is this a place you say, I think maybe it's just time to break things off here? Like, how would you counsel somebody who's dating and that's where they find themselves?
Oof, I hate to be that person who you're going to point to and say, Shang told me to break up with you. Let me not be that person. But I think there's a lot to be said for thinking about whether this is a hill you're willing to die on, and whether you think this is maybe a quirk of the personality versus like this is actually a difference in values. So my husband and I are actually behave very differently around finances. But
Okay.
at the end of the day, both of us are very aligned in what we felt the role of money played in our relationship, in our lives, what we want the purpose of money be. It's just that we wanted to achieve it in different ways. And you can even see that in our career. Like I made this huge decision a year ago to leave a high flying corporate career and just to save my cents because I felt called to do that. And basically I give up, a lot of income to do so. My husband on the other end, he's a lot more conservative. So he's like, I'm still going to make sure that we have healthcare, and he chose to stay in his career. But also he didn't feel called by God to do something very different.
Yeah.
But we made it work together. So if you see differences between you and your significant other, ask if this is like it's literally calling up differences in values. Like you just see money very, very differently, or is it just like it's just a personality quirk that you're going to get to the same goal at the end. It's just that you choose to do a little bit different.
Yes, because whether it's about money or something else, each of us in a relationship is going to have our idiosyncrasies that the other person either like gets or finds annoying. And it's just a matter of deciding, is this actually a deal breaker? So there is like some wisdom and discernment that's required. That's really great. So then let's move to segment 2 then. They're engaged. What are the things that you must know and have alignment on before you are like standing at one end of that aisle, getting ready to give those vows?
Goodness. We don't want abandonment at the aisle. That's for
exactly.
Sure. When you're engaged, and hopefully it's been impressed upon you to have premarital counseling, because you are trying to prevent a painful, expensive divorce and also emotional pain in the marriage leading up to the divorce. And it's a lot cheaper to give up on an engagement than it is to, divorce a marriage. Like, trust me, you do not want to pay the money it costs to go through a divorce. So you have to look for everything. Like, okay, dating, fun, find compatibility, somebody you want to spend your time with. But if you're committing to marriage, you're hoping to commit for a lifetime. And that includes talking about everything that matters in life. And you talk about your religion and your religious values. You talk about whether you wish to have children or not, because that's a huge commitment. You're probably going to be talking about a bunch of other things in premarital counseling. There's, all those questionnaires and worksheets that you go through. So why not talk about money? And this is when we have to get into the nitty gritty things, the 3 things that I care about. What's the income currently, just so you're aware, like, okay, this is what's going to happen when, we live together. What are the components of net worth? Like, what do you have in savings and what do you have in debts? Because if you're combining finances, debt is a huge part of figuring out how to work that out. And then finally, like, what are you spending your money on, and how is that going to look like when we live together? Because now, if you choose to combine your finances, you're also going to be combining your expenses, and you need to be aware of what each other does. And that, I know it's uncomfortable to talk about, and maybe you don't even have all your numbers in front of you, but at this point, everything needs to be laid out on the table. It needs to be transparent to prevent the pain and heartache and the financial ache of divorce.
That does feel like a place to me that if you have made it to the point of engagement and there are places of like total misalignment financially, that there's not a willingness to sort of like, can we find a common ground and agree upon a way forward together here, that probably is a place to either seek more counseling together and see if there's a professional that can help you through that, or to say, this might not be worth the risk of stepping into together if we are not aligned on these big financial questions. Again, a matter of wisdom and discernment and walking through this together of how significant are our differences on this. And, if there's this one restricted situation, maybe it's not that big of a deal. But if it's a number of the same habits coming up that just are not changing, extrapolate that out to a lifetime together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And are you prepared? Are you prepared to engage around those differences for a lifetime, or does it seem possible that it might not be possible to do that?
In some ways, I would say dating and engagement is sort of low stakes compared to marriage. Like you don't see
Yes.
everything. You're hopefully going to be married for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. The hardest stuff has yet to come. You just can't foresee that right now. But I can guarantee you do not want to go through the pain of divorce. I would choose the pain of a breakup or a broken engagement over the pain of divorce any day.
Absolutely. Shang, it stands out to me that almost every InterVarsity staff worker has a reputation when it comes to talking about relationships, people feeling like their staff workers telling them to break up with their boyfriend or girlfriend or significant other. I'm glad that we can carry on that tradition today.
But there's hope too. I met my husband in InterVarsity, so
yes,
you can also meet your life partner that way.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now I make light of that, but I also recognize that there is another layer to this that you mentioned, and I do want to make sure that we give space to that. And that's the reality that this could move beyond incompatibility to like actual financial abuse and trying to control a significant other, a partner through finances. Are there some markers that you've noticed in your time working with people of like, oh, if you're seeing one or a couple of these kind of things, these should be really big red flags that are going off, not just about incompatibility, but about abuse?
Yeah. There's this crazy statistic that over 90% of all abusive relationships have an element of financial abuse.
Wow.
And it often starts with financial abuse before it escalates into physical abuse. Like when people think about domestic violence, that's near the end of a abusive relationship. It starts out so small, which is why I actually focus on this so much, because people don't even realize they're entering into it. And it starts with isolation, and it's financial isolation where either your abuser asks you to give up any source of income, or the other form of abuse is they force you to be the only source of income for a relationship. That's red flag number one, that you're forced into either no income or being the only source of income. Then the next form of isolation that abusers often do is that they seek to control you through money. So regardless of who makes the money, they're going to control the way that you can spend it, often through like literally giving you an insulting allowance that's just not enough to live off of, because they want to isolate you and then make you wholly dependent on them, so that it's harder for you to leave their circle of control. And this often happens right around the time when the abuser thinks that they've got you for good. So usually during engagement, or sadly for a lot of abusive relationships, after you're married. So it's very, very difficult to identify this. But once you identify it, here's the sad thing about abusive relationships. Very, very rarely can abusive relationships be redeemed. My advice, unfortunately, for most people, and I do think that there is biblical backup for this, is to leave the relationship. Even if it means divorce, you need to leave an abusive relationship and protect yourself, because ultimately abusive relationships elevate into physical violence, and that can be very unfortunate.
Okay, I mean, that was going to be my follow-up, is what is the recourse for something like this? Like, what do you do if you start to observe, and it sounds like what needs to happen is getting out of the situation, which I know that we do not recommend lightly whatsoever.
Absolutely.
we fully believe in committed lifelong marriage, that there are hills and valleys, but there are some of these places that we need to rethink what that looks like. And this is one of those places of the statistics show that if this is the abuse that you're experiencing, it's probably just the beginning.
Which is, it's painful. It's painful, but God provides. God provides irrespective of gender. If you find yourself being abused, you need to get yourself out. And unfortunately, because you're often isolated or restricted in your access of money, you actually need to build up a secret, what I call it, a escape fund. Like try to some extent to build up money in some place that your abuser is not aware of. For some people, this has actually been, literally cash hidden under the bed. But there are modern ways to do that too. And also, you need to actually really find somebody that you trust outside of the relationship to help you as well. Your abuser likely has started to isolate you from your family, from your friends, telling you not to be around them or whatever excuse they give you that you shouldn't, hang out with your family and friends. But tell someone that you can trust in, because you need somebody by your side. You need a landing place. Like you're going to have to leave your home, your place of residence. You're going to need some place to go, and shelters are, not the best place to land. I mean, I'm glad that they exist, but if you can land with a trusted friend, trusted family member, that will be much better for you to escape this relationship.
Yes. And it feels like one of those things that's easier to just sort of keep in the dark. And the best thing that you can do is to get it out into the light. Other people knowing is a step towards finding help and moving into a healthier direction, finding people that you can trust, a professional to speak to. Wow. Okay. Shang, we've landed in sort of a like this is a difficult thing to walk through.
Ooh, heavy,
and for people
heavy.
to be considering, this is maybe a little heavier than the rest of our conversations have gone up to this point. I'm wondering, as far as finance and relationship goes, do you have maybe a final pastoral word of encouragement or something to help people know that there is a good track to go on here, or something to help encourage people down a good road together in this way?
Let's actually talk about the beauty of a beautiful, redeemed relationship where money does work out.
I love it. Let's do that.
There's scientific evidence that when couples are on the same page with finances, it leads to greater satisfaction in the relationship, and you achieve your financial goals faster than if you try to do it alone. And I know I went quickly through my introduction saying that, my husband and I reached the ability to be work optional at age 31. I do want to note that that's actually very rare. And most people don't become multimillionaires in their 30s. And I credit a lot of this financial achievement. Again, it's all by the grace of God, to the fact that my husband and I were so intentional during our engagement, during our dating, even talking about all of this, talking about the purpose of money, agreeing to combine our finances and our goals, and again, letting God take the wheel. God is going to be our boss of our money. He's the one that gives us everything. We manage it for him. And I can say, we've now been married 11 years. I cannot believe it. It's been amazing.
That's awesome.
Just seeing our personal growth from being aligned, but also our combined ability to impact others, to help others. If it weren't for my husband and me together on this journey, I don't think I could even be here today to talk about finances in such a way and be able to help others, because I'd probably still be, working my butt off at a corporate hamster wheel kind of job, just trying to make it for my family. So when it does work out, it is beautiful and it is very edifying. And I hope that at least the example of my husband and my marriage can be glorifying and also encouraging to people who are interested in this.
Yeah, I mean, I would give this a similar story, just as far as my wife and I credit a lot of it to my in-laws, who, when I sat down with them and asked for their permission to marry Caitlin, my wife, they said yes, but. And I did. There's you could fill in that blank after but with so many things, and what they said is not what I expected them to say. They said yes, but you must take a financial wellness course together so that you can get on the same. We will pay for you to do it, but you must get on the same page and move forward together before you're even married. And in that case, it's a full yes from us.
That is such a loving way and fantastic way for parents to approach personal finances with their adult children in such a loving and non-judgmental approach as well.
Yes, absolutely. And that set us on a track for communicating early and often and strategizing together. It's funny. We talk about, money so often being something that leads to divorce or at least strife in a marriage. Money's been one of the things that Caitlin and I have the most fun coming around together and strategizing goals and next steps and ways that we want to think about the way that we give and money has been a life-giving thing for us. And so I completely agree that there's so much hope to be had in and around money that it doesn't have to be the sort of death knell for your relationship. It can actually be a boost for growing together and having a deeper, more meaningful relationship.
Well, bravo all around to your family.
Yes.
And setting that up, because that's also going to be fantastic for your children as well. And seeing a healthy marriage with healthy finances.
And for it to be something that's a lot of fun to get to do together. Shang, please, will you, one more time, will you plug your book for us? Tell us when and where we can find it, and we'll make sure that information makes it into our show notes.
Yes. Wealth is a Mindset. Comes out January 2025. We'll have the link in the show notes, but also please reach out anytime to me on Instagram at Save My Sense, all one word. I'm here to help you. Would love to meet more people that way. I just love talking about personal finances in the not in the, I love money kind of way, but because I love God and God gave me the gift to talk about money. So I'm happy to connect with people.
Shang, thank you so much for investing in these 3 conversations with your fellow alumni and offering such contextualized advice. I think that I think that these are conversations that people don't always get to. It's always like, how do you build a budget? Okay, great. Now I know how to. You've given us so much more than just how to build a budget, and I'm really grateful for that. And I'm excited to keep pointing people towards your book. And in January, you're going to be joining us on our other podcast, InterVarsity World Changers, so people can hear even more about the ins and outs of your journey and the ways that God is using you to change the world around you. And I'm super excited for people to get to join us for that conversation as well.
Oh my goodness. So fun talking to you, John, about all these topics. And I hope that and anyone who's listened to this will be able to take something away from it and be able to, grow your net worth a little bit more. That's my hope.
Okay, I know things got pretty serious for a minute there, but I really do hope that this conversation has been helpful as you think about money in the context of dating and marriage. I think it's easy for us to think of money as a secondary topic that we'll just figure out along the way. Or maybe we don't think about it at all in the context of relationships. But Shang has really brought some clarity around the importance of making this one of the handful of primary strategies to get on the same page about if you're considering spending the rest of your life with someone. Maybe in a perfect world it shouldn't be the case, but it truly does have the power to make or break a marriage. Shang, thank you again so much for joining us for these 3 episodes. It has been so much fun to chat with you and to learn from your expertise. If you didn't get a chance to catch either of my other conversations with Shang, be sure to check out the show notes. I will post them there. Then I'll see you next time as we pause from our money series to take a moment to be thoughtful about the beginning of the coming Advent season. Next time, we will revisit my conversation from a couple years ago with Jason Gabery as we discussed the question, why Advent, and its importance in the church community and in our walk with Jesus. And then we'll be taking a short break the following week as we enjoy some time off with our families for Thanksgiving. Until then, please consider sharing this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and I will see you in the after, alumni. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today, alumni. If there was anything that you learned, really enjoyed, or that encouraged you from today's episode, would you send us a DM or tag us in a story? We'd love to hear about it. You can find us at After4Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And if you haven't already, take just a second to unlock your phone and subscribe to the podcast. If your platform lets you, leave us a rating and a review. And if you like what we're doing here, share us with your InterVarsity or other post-graduation friends. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you in the after, alumni.